Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Shay Smith from Virgin Media Business side of things. I head up what's called Advanced Technology and Innovation. I've got a slightly different hat on today because about 2 years ago I was thrown a business challenge around how we communicate with our customers and our sales force in a different way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And it's really about expectation setting. So before I start, what I always like to do is start with an epic fail story so that we can only go up from there. And this one is about expectation setting. It was about 18 months ago I was asked to present at a conference, a schools conference, where Virgin Media provide all of the connectivity to about 2,500 schools across London. And for the first year we were sponsoring this event in a large theatre in London, where all of the heads, teachers and all the heads of IT were going to be gathered there, and the itinerary and agenda went out with the first item that said an introduction from Richard Branson. And it was the first year that this conference was sold out completely. And I was speaking after him. But unfortunately, when the agendas went out, they hadn't actually told anybody that it would be a 2-minute video filmed from Zephyr Island. It actually also unfortunately coincided with the first time that I'd ever presented with a live Twitter feed going behind me and around me. And as I got onto the stage, the first tweet that I saw was, "Where the bleep is Branson? Who the bleep is this curly twat?" So, not the greatest of starts. Made even worse at the break when the organiser and CEO of the Grid for Learning come up to me and said, "Well, that was a harsh start." He said, "I don't think you're even that curly." But it's about managing that sort of expectation, and we have a real problem. We had a real problem at Virgin because, and it's a nice thing to have in many ways, is that we have this fantastic brand, and within Virgin Media Business, it opens many doors to go and have the right conversations and talk about technology. But unfortunately, where we've come from in our past is that we come from this telecommunications sort of history of many cable companies coming together with many complicated systems and a portfolio that doesn't actually meet people's sort of expectation. To put it honestly, it's quite boring. Yeah? So when we go out to see customers, quite often there's an expectation that they're going to be having a different conversation with Virgin Media Business as opposed to some of our competitors. And then the conversation becomes very same, and we're dropping our customers down before we even start. And that's the challenge. So how do we get near our product sets and our capability and the way we talk about them closer to that brand expectation? And that was the real challenge that was sort of thrown at me. And I actually had two epiphany moments, if you can have two epiphany moments. But the first one was I was invited to see a council, a large council, who wanted to talk about Wi-Fi. That's all they wanted. It was a rollout of Wi-Fi across their buildings several years ago. And typically we took our harem of support in, of about 7 strong, to their one sort of CEO. And we had a slide deck of about 120 slides, and Wi-Fi was on slides 80 and 81. But by God, we were going to get through all of them. And as they were presenting this slide, I had this sort of out-of-body experience where I watched the audience, a single-member audience, and I saw the sort of the blood and the infusion drain from him completely, and I could see him saying, "We're never going to buy this from you. Yeah, this is, you've completely missed what we're here to talk about. There's no agility in this. There's no engagement." So I come away from that thinking things have to be different. We have to do things differently. The second one was at that same time we were going through quite a bit of a reorganisation internally, and we were actually losing a number of staff from our technical pre-sale support area. And it's this second picture. But as I was in charge of all of technical pre-sales at the time, and what happened was there was a few disgruntled members of staff about the reorg, and a package arrived at every sales manager's desk saying that with a letter signed from our MD at the time, or forged, should I say, And it basically said, your days of technical support are over. Included in this parcel is your new virtual assistant. And within that package was a blow-up doll. What happened was that I got sent all of these from the heads of sales, sent all of these blow-up dolls in. What the hell's going on? You know, control your teams even though they're off. Which was when you started seeing these packages coming through the post, it was a difficult one to explain to the wife. But as I looked at this and I looked at the letter and the way it had been constructed, I thought to myself, actually, there's something in this. There is something in this, and there is something that we don't need to throw these hard on the support at every opportunity we've got out there. Because the products and solutions we're talking about are becoming more and more commoditized. Yeah, so people are just. They know what's going to happen with networks now. It's not so like you have to explain what's going to happen. So actually we don't need to talk about that so much. And equally, the efficiency to sell something and the economy behind it is being killed by the fact that we've got these big support teams around it. So we need to do something different. So those two epiphany moments led to the creation of an idea which was the virtual consultant, which was launched in end of 2014. So working with Volume, we come up with an idea to say, well, actually, we want to do three things. We want to firstly, make sure that our people are engaged in a better way and understand what we're doing. So we created an avatar and a gamified way of describing what our products and services do. Secondly, we want them to present in a different way. We want it to be interactive. We don't want to have this set of PowerPoint slides that they have to go through in a sequential way, but we want to be able to jump around with content and be able to say, well, actually, if I'm talking about the delivery of files here, and then suddenly someone mentions data center, that's 25 slides on, but no, I'm just going to jump to that and explain that and be able to jump back really quickly and have loads of infographics and creativity and content within there rather than the same old repetitive stuff. And the third model is, well, once you've got all of that content and once that's all sitting somewhere, why can't our customers just do some of that stuff themselves? Why can't we leave it behind and let them play with the content and let them understand things? Let it keep selling to them without actually having a physical salesperson in the room. So in 2014 we launched the virtual consultant with our first couple of products, and it caught people's imagination and it started to take off. And then over the time, we've actually rolled out across all of our main 15 product sets. So now, and to be honest, the biggest uptake and the biggest use of this service is really around the education side of it, the churn of salespeople, constantly being trained up, all of that side of things. We now can just give them a platform they can go on and they can look and learn about all of our product sets. And the beauty of that is that our induction program before was we would sit someone in a room for sort of six days going through the product sets, and then they wouldn't sell one for another 6 months, and then they'd have to come back and go, I can't remember what a IPVPN or a network service was. But here we can just have it with them the whole time. So that was then turned into an app. And we've been developing the apps, and that's not anything to do. The reason that the app is quite slow is because, again, we were playing a bit of catch up. Our salespeople weren't using iPads, so we had to wait for the iPads to be rolled out across the Salesforce first, and then we could deliver the app. So that's all coming. But then Volume come to us and said, well, actually, this is you're still in the old school world a little bit here. And what about if we could do things a bit more cognitively? What about if we could actually do some more machine learning with this side of things? And I'll let Chris talk about what that all means and how that's and the work they've done on that. But the use case that we're looking at the moment and that we're trialling is to say, well, actually, if we've got all this data that sits, and the virtual consultant will be one feed off of it, and we've got all of that data. But what about if we put all of our product content in there? What about if we put all of our legal content in there? What about if we put everything we can into one place, and then we could have a conversation with it that then started looking at how we use that data? So the example I use that we're really looking at pushing at the moment is around how we respond to major tenders and bids. We do a hell of a lot of work in the public sector, and typically a public sector bid response will ask a similar sort of questions. Now, at the moment, we have a big bid team that go along and they rewrite every response that comes in. There's a hell of a lot of duplication. But if the salesperson can go on and say, here's my question, Here's the 15 last responses that we've had using that similar question. It cognitively says, well actually, here's the marking scheme that you got from those, and actually this is the most used answer, this is the most used in this example, and this type of customer in this sector, and actually they can, and with a weighting, a scored weighting as well, they can take that data and actually fill out the bid responses themselves. So you start getting sort of staff efficiency side of things as well. So I'll hand over to Chris now, who can talk a little bit about the journey that we've been on together and how we're moving to the cognitive side of things.
Okay, I'm Chris Sykes. Good afternoon, everybody. So about volume, we're not a start-up. The company was established in 1997, although about 12 months ago today we became a IBM Watson ecosystem partner. In those 12 months, we've developed 2 of the world's 150 in-market applications, one for obviously Shea and one for Castrol of BP. So, got a video. I think the video's going to work. Is the video work? So basically the video is it's going to show you, our journey in terms of how you approach a cognitive application. And the thing to understand is that it's not software development. The technology is actually the easy bit. IBM will supply us access to Watson APIs through the cloud. Really, really simple. One of the challenges that you have is obviously creating, I guess, a natural interaction with a machine, in essence. So currently we're working with 6 APIs. We started with NLC, which is Natural Language Classifier, and Dialogue. Well, that's your basic perimeter and platform for having a natural conversation with a machine. NLC understands the context of the question. So if you search Google or ask Google what's the temperature today, Google will come back and it will say it's 20 degrees. If you do that in a cognitive application, it understands that you're talking about the weather. So actually what it'll come back with is a much greater degree of insight. So it's 20 degrees right now, but actually at 3 o'clock it's going to start raining, and actually there's a shop around the corner that's offering 20% off your umbrella. We're actually then layering in sentiment analysis, personality insights, tone analyzer, and emotion analysis. And what that does is a machine that understands your mood and understands your personality. So if you think in a contact center environment, what we're trying to do is effectively extend the self-serve cycle and automate first touch at every appropriate point. So if we can take away a lot of the laborious tasks, so if you're working in a contact center, you're handling 30, 40 calls a day of people having a go at you. Nobody rings up a contact center saying, yeah, you're doing a great job, we love you. By getting a machine involved in that, what we're delivering is a very controlled scenario, a very controlled environment, a very consistent brand experience that's not going to be affected by the human's mood at the end of the telephone. In a sales scenario, it'll understand whether you're on the blue scale. So if you understand the colours, if you're blue, you're more analytical in your decision making, you probably want to see more technical information, you might want to see more product comparisons. If you're red, it'll serve up shiny pictures and you'll buy it if you're more spontaneous in that scenario. So in terms of what we're delivering from a Virgin Media standpoint, effectively it's a sales performance optimization platform for the salespeople. It's providing them with a know-as-you-go model, which means that they don't have to go through laborious classroom-based training or endless e-learning modules. So your sales force is effectively market ready from day one. Some of the benefits that we're seeing from Virgin is a much shorter sales cycle, higher conversion rates, and actually, we can't publish the figure, but we're seeing a much higher pipe per individual salesperson. So with a cognitive application, again, it starts as an empty brain. The challenge that we've got is initially to get IP from the business. That's from the salespeople who are obviously interfacing with customers and getting their in-field knowledge into the application, training it in the context of how we want it to interact with individuals, and also then adding in additional information around technical information, product knowledge, regulatory information. Again, we can connect to open sources that constantly update that. I guess in terms of where we are, with some of our sort of cognitive applications, and that applies to the Castrol, which is a technical assistant, is they're probably about to take their A-levels. In 3 months' time, they'll be going to university, and in 2 months' time, they'll be graduating from university. And so it really is a cognitive journey. Our sort of big picture, so we work with the C-suite or the CMO, the CIO, or the CEO, the cognitive vision that we're saying is imagine your organisation's entire IP here. Imagine just in one brain. Now, in order for you to start that journey, you've got to find your focus. So it was obvious with Virgin Media that we had an existing virtual consultant that wasn't cognitive. Could we make it indeed cognitive in that sense? In terms of looking forward, now that we have the Virgin brain there, Shay implemented, other things will connect to it. So we'll be looking to transform the whole experience of customer service. So we're not looking to take human beings out of the loop. We're just effectively automating something else. As human beings, since we've been trying to make our lives a lot easier. So we're taking humans out of a mundane, not very pleasant scenario, and then optimising them to do things that are much more fulfilling. So again, we'll look at contact centres being manned by machines at a first touch, and ultimately what we're looking at doing is actually how do we interface with legacy CRM systems, and how do we eventually replace those CRM systems, because we're not relying on human beings keying in data fields. We can just take it straight from the interaction into the system. So of course, Shay took so long. I've rattled through it in 10 minutes, and obviously we couldn't get the video to work, so I apologise for that. But does anybody have any questions for Shay himself?
What do you see your biggest challenges in terms of getting internal stakeholder buy-in?
Yes.
I'm done as well.
Yeah. That's
Internal
great.
stakeholder buy-in.
Yeah.
What do you see your biggest challenges to be, sir?
Yeah, got it. So it's actually a very timely question as well, because we're going through some of this at the moment. So from the early virtual consultant piece, it was actually relatively easy because we had that big challenge there. There was a problem there. The biggest challenge I have at the moment is by going in and talking about something like IBM Watson. It's sometimes too large for people to understand the size of it all, and they go, well, actually this sounds very complicated, and it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to take a load of our resource, and so on. So it's actually how you simplify it right down, and what we're actually doing really, we've talked about this loads of times, is we are absolutely scratching the surface of the capability that it has. If you looked at some of the other parts of our business where we're moving into Internet of Things and big data, with a corpus sitting behind us and where we can actually start piling loads of data in, that's going to drive a load of stuff for our customers. But we can't even have that conversation until we get off the ground. So what we're doing is we've found 2 or 3 real business problems that we're then taking the rest of the business say, we can just fix these, and these are the efficiencies that we get by fixing these. We're looking at how potentially, rather than outsourcing bid management or offshoring bid management, is do it with machine learning. Yeah, where's the cost saving there? It could be quite substantial. Yeah, then you get people behind you and you say, oh, by the way, here's 5 other things we can do with it as well.
From our aspect, it's finding that focus. Our strategy was to look at incumbent applications that we developed for our clients, Virgin and BP, and the question was, can we make it positive? And what value would that add to making it positive? So effectively, the application had for a business program. We didn't have to go to procurement, we didn't have to go to IT, we didn't have to go and pick the business case. Again, the technology is really easy if you have access to it and you know how to play with it. So we basically developed prototypes in 12 weeks. So we had a working MVP, a prototype that actually we could then populate with a domain set, a small domain set, but it allows somebody to actually interact with it. Now remember, the VC, basically you ask it a question, it will speak to the question to you, and then at the moment we've got a confident rating that comes back. And we demoed it to one of the senior guys at Virgin over at Hammersmith, wasn't it? And he said, well, it's pretty practical. You know these questions and ask him, obviously it's giving a pre-planned answer. I want to ask it a question. So asked it this question, it came back with 14% confidence rating. It's all farmers speaking around the room. But that's the whole point. It never been asked that question before. It thought that's the right answer, but I'm not going to state the right thing. It's 40%. And then on the application, again, with the video, there's 3 icons. You know, is that the correct answer? Nearly the correct answer? Totally wrong answer. Because it's continually learning. So when obviously you click that's the right answer, if somebody asks the question in the future, as he asked it, that will come back with 100% confidence rating. If it's asked in a slightly different way, the confidence rating might be a little bit lower. But you can set the confidence rating. So if you know the Opus story, you know, about 4 years ago, it took on the Jeopardy champions, which is a general knowledge quiz show in the US, ingested the entire content of Wikipedia, and I think that threshold they were about 80% before it was, you're not 80% confident, Watson, don't answer the question. So you can set those parameters in that sense. Yeah. So we can display that to an exec team within 12 weeks.
Yeah, and one of the challenges we've got is that at the moment, we use our intranet for the sheer amount of data that's out there. Our salespeople will go on and they'll pull data off that intranet. A lot of it's out of date. It's incorrect. Quite often we're very bad at retiring information. Now we're not retiring anything by putting it into Watson, but what you're doing is you're showing the most use. You're showing its percentage of success rate, and that just means that the salesperson can still use the wrong information. Don't get me wrong; they can still pull that 2% answer if they really want to, but actually they'll see that there's 15 other ones there that are much more beneficial to them.
Yeah, if I could pick up on that, if I may. I mean, what you're saying about the sales process didn't half resonate with me. I mean, as you say, traditionally our approach to supporting the sales lead is to compensate for their weaknesses. With huge piles of knowledge on intranets and what have you. I often find the response from the sales lead is, what's all this shit? Do I really need to regurgitate all this? So what you've been talking about sounds incredibly interesting to me, and if, as I think I detect, it's going to be more about reinforcing the sales lead's strengths rather than compensating for their weaknesses. So provided we then make sure that all the key stakeholders in the sales process, not just the sales lead, are engaged so that we get everything into the response that we need to. I'd see this as incredibly promising. So my fundamental question would be, are you seeing the impact in win rates?
So as Chris mentioned to you earlier, the product sets that we've rolled out across, we've seen an immediate spike in win rate, and win rates have gone up across. The difficult thing that we have at the moment is how we measure that across our divisions, because we've got some. So if you can imagine our small business divisions where we haven't actually gone and really marketed this heavily, that's much more automated. That would be hugely successful if we actually got out to those groups. But a lot of the focus we've done so far has been on our larger sales environments, and those win rates have definitely gone up. The best bit of feedback we had was actually using the analytics of the tool itself. So a salesperson would say, well, actually, I've given this virtual consultant out to one of my customers. So the next time I get a meeting with that customer, I can actually trace where in our services that customer has been, and if they've been stuck on a particular topic, I can go straight into that meeting, and rather going, what do you want? I'm going, I see you've got an issue of IP addressing, let me talk to you about IP addressing, or let me bring in the resource that's about IP addressing ready for that meeting. And it just makes it such a more important and richer conversation than we've ever had before.
I mean, there's a well-known, graph in terms of a salesperson starting an organisation whose confidence is up here, but his knowledge is down here. And over time, the confidence goes, right down because he's having the challenge of consuming all that information in a fast-changing tech market. It's incredibly hard to do that. So the know-as-you-go model allows, the salesperson to be market ready from day one. He can sit with the customer and go through it. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is get the customer to self-configure. To again, just extend that self-serve side. The Castrol version is slightly different. It's a technical advisor. That goes live at the end of May. And again, we'd be really surprised at how a large organisation like BP has moved very quickly within 6 months to get this effectively live. Bearing in mind, obviously, the very risk-averse organisation, you really want a machine giving technical advice to somebody, So there's a big leap of faith but BP have been very rigorous in terms of how they've tested it and focused on the accuracy and the validity of the answers. But it's a journey. As I said, it's machine learning. It just goes on over time, and that's the big challenge. You have to be prepared as an organisation to invest internally to get your IP into that brain.
Well, great. I want to thank Jay and Chris for the information. It's really fascinating stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So let's thank the panel.